Welcome to the Human Flourishing Project. I'm your host, Alex Epstein. This week, I'm doing a sort of repeat of last week, but with different content and different people. It is the Triumphing Over Disruption workshop. Last week, I tried an experiment of doing a live workshop where I taught people a tool called the Triumphing Over Disruption tool. And I got a lot of good feedback, learned a bunch. And so this week I decided to do it again with some of the same participants, some different participants. And we went through some different areas of life and worked on the question, how can we possibly figure out how to maybe even make this area of life better than it was before the disruption. So if you want more on the background and the full explanation of the tool, listen to the previous episode. This episode, I introduce it much more quickly, and we're mostly focused on application. That's all I'll say about it for now. Again, if you haven't heard the previous episode, I'd recommend listening to that one. Otherwise, enjoy this episode, and I'll be back on the other side. So, all right, 3:02, we don't want to reward lateness, so we're going to get started. This is going to be, I don't know, some of you heard last week, I don't think most of you, or some of you might have heard it on Human Flourishing Project. So I'm just going to introduce the subject matter a lot more quickly this time, and if you want the full explanation, you can listen to the last episode and future episodes. And then Kelso just posted a link to the outline, so if you don't have the outline or you haven't seen the outline, check that out, because I'll be referring to that. But just to quickly summarize the goal, and then we're going to quickly go into a series of interactive exercises. So the way I think of it is the goal is not to diminish the disruption, which I see a lot of people doing, but rather to give you tools to triumph as much as possible given the disruption. And so I've found it very empowering to think about, like, hey, are there basically upping my game. So saying, okay, there's so much is disrupted, so much is harder. What can I do in the different areas of life to possibly make my life even better in that area than it was before? And it's not necessarily that it'll actually be better, but I find that to be a very powerful thought process. So I'm going to be going through again that thought process, and then we're going to be applying it to the different areas of life. And just to remind people, my classification, as I have overall, there are 3 areas: foundations, activities, and companions. And then there are 4 in each of them. So under foundations, I have it as resources / money, environment, as in your personal environment, physical health and mental health. Under activities, I have creation, recreation, rejuvenation, and reflection. Under companions, I have partner, family, friends, and coworkers. So today we're going to be going through the tool, the Triumphing Over Disruption tool. And I want to run through a lot of examples of it and help you work through it. And then I'll have some general advice at the end. But first, what I want to do is something that was suggested by one of the participants last week, which is I want to break you up into groups. So Kelsey, do you want to break them up into groups of 3 or 4?
Let's see. Total number. We could have 3 rooms of 5. There's 15, so
yeah, that's good.
Might be better.
3 rooms of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. About five rooms of 3.
That's
so right. And so what I want you to do, we're just going to do this for 3 minutes. In part, it's going to, if you haven't used the Zoom breakout room feature, we're going to put you into breakout rooms. And basically what you're just going to do is introduce yourself to the 2 other people, say what your name is, where you're from, and then also why you came to this workshop / what your goals are. And then we'll bring you right back and we'll start with the exercises, and then we'll put you back into the groups. And I found in my other workshops I've participated in, it's cool to have other people to share it with, and then you can share it with the broader group. So Kelso, you want to put them in their groups, and then we'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, great. So did everybody just raise your hand if you were able to get into the rooms and meet people? Perfect. Anyone in your group have a particularly interesting reason for why they were here? We had some in our group, but anyone want to share anything you heard from your group about, like, any interesting reasons why people were here? You can just raise your hand. I'm not sophisticated. Okay, is that Chris?
Yep. Yeah, I just the reports, the news that's coming in seems to be so apocalyptic that your suggestion on how to cope with it struck a chord with me. So I was interested in hearing your perspective.
Got it. Anyone else? Well, I'll just share in our group. I mean, we hear the things that I've heard, all over the places, which is, including just having to be at home with kids a lot more, which is, just in a very disruptive and unexpected way. And then just the incredible amount of distraction right now. I'm a big fan of eliminating distraction, but I mean, just with not just a virus, but like a kaleidoscopic political climate where everything is changing and you're trying to figure out, like what's going on. I mean, it's just so, and then it has all this partisanship in it. I mean, that is, yes, Kelso just asked me if anyone can join late. Sure, they can join late. So, I mean, those are two examples of the disruption. I think the distraction one is a huge one. So let's jump into the exercise. And again, I want to spend most of this workshop on doing the exercises and then me giving any kind of feedback that I can. But so I want to talk, if you go in the outline to the part that says the triumph over disruption tool. So the big categories are acknowledge the disruption, what sucks in this realm, be creative, what could I possibly do that would make this area of life or some part of it better than it was before. And I'm going to focus even more this time on steps 3 and 4, particularly step 4, outline the actions as step 3 for my best idea, what actions would be necessary to achieve it, and then create the conditions. What conditions can I put in place right now to make it more likely that I will take these actions? And I'm really going to be hitting on that. And I emphasized it last week and got some positive feedback about that. And I emphasize it for myself as well. So part of this is going to be creating, hey, what are the ideas? But then just as important is creating the conditions to make the ideas happen. So I'll give you an example that I started last Friday, and it's another recreation example. I think the recreation examples are so important because it's an area of our life that's so disrupted, and life is holistic. So just these disruptions in going outside, doing our usual activities is just so hard. So for me, the one I focused on this time was the disruption. So what sucks is my main physical hobby, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I would do 3 to 5 times a week when I was home, just is not allowed at all. And it was such a good thing that I had, and it was a really fun form of exercise. And for 17 years, I got used to being able to do exercise and really enjoying it. And that is really hard to lose. And then it was really stimulating mentally, and it's diverting. And my default was just, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. And that was really tough. And I brought this up last week because it's just something I hadn't gotten to in terms of triumphing. So what could I possibly do that would make this area of life or some part of it better than it was before? So it's one of these cases where I can't replicate, at least legally, anywhere near the full experience of it. So it's one of these cases where I have to think about something, where I have to take some aspect of it and say, okay, some aspects I can't make better. They have to be worse, but some aspects can actually be better. And so one of the sub questions is, what has always bothered you in that area? That sometimes can be fertile. And for me, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but there are certain parts of jiu-jitsu, like certain basic movements, that I'm not particularly good at. And that bothers me because I'm in some sense an expert, and I would like to work on those. And I know that if I worked on those, it'd be very satisfying. So there's one of the best instructors in jiu-jitsu, a guy named John Danaher, released a set of instructionals on solo drills that you can do. And actually the premise of his solo drills was, if you do these, you'll actually be better than when you stopped training on the mat. Like, he's had experience with himself and with champion students of his with injury, and they've come back better. So it's a perfect triumphing over disruption. So there was that.
Sorry, Alex, hate to interrupt, but did you say solar drills?
Solo. So sorry, probably sounds like solar.
Solo. Okay,
solar, because I say solar all the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, what was that name?
Of the person?
Yeah, John who?
Oh, it's Danaher.
Danaher?
Yeah. Sorry, I just said it in passing because it's probably not. That's funny, Mark Moses. Well, solo drills can be unreliable as well. So we'll get into the conditions, but this is just the idea stage of it. So I had the idea of, okay, yeah, I could do these solo drills, and then I could actually be better, and I could work on my weaknesses. And then another thing that I mentioned last week, but that I've been developing, is I really, really enjoy watching instructional videos by the absolute best people where they're explaining the concepts, like their key concepts. So sometimes people just explain techniques, like a very discrete technique. And sometimes it's somebody who's not even that good, but sometimes it's one of the best people in the world. And they're explaining their concept that makes them distinctively good. And I love doing that. And it's something I just wasn't spending much time on. I would spend a lot more time watching jujitsu news, which is, it's kind of like every other news. It has these different kinds of factions and it's kind of interesting in a horse race, but it's not that satisfying. So I thought, okay, well, I could make my jujitsu life better if I just start watching these by my favorite people. So there are like 4 people. Not that it matters to you guys, but just the specificity. There's this guy, John Danaher, who's a coach. There's a guy named Gordon Ryan, who's his biggest student. There's a guy named Roger Gracie, who's one of the great champions. And there's a guy named Rafael Mendez, who's one of the great champions. And so I'll tell you how I've executed on this, but this is just thinking about, okay, my jiu-jitsu life in significant ways will be better if I do these solo drills and if I watch these videos and think about it, because I'll really be enjoying it. I'll be enjoying the mental part of it, which is one of my favorites, and I'll be getting better. And then maybe there's some stuff I can do training with other people covertly, but I won't mention this on the call in case Gavin Newsom is watching. But the main thing is that it's not that I can get back what I had, but I can make aspects of the area better. And I really have to push myself beyond my comfort zone. So just to quickly go into the actions. So the actions are, okay, for the solo drills, it's just devote half an hour a day to watching the videos and doing the drills. And so for that, the condition is put a specific time on your calendar every day. So for me, it's currently 1:30 to 2 o'clock. I have a rejuvenation block of 1 to 2:30. And so 1:30 to 2 o'clock is a good block for that. And so it's that is actually on the calendar. It says do John Danaher solo drills. So that's a real thing in my life that's changed. Now, it doesn't guarantee I'll do it, but it's a lot better than it just saying, oh, I'll get to it. And then the other idea was, okay, I want to watch these videos. And what I did with the videos is I basically made it, the condition was make the videos my default content consumption. So we sometimes have default content consumption where we're in what I call the void, where we're not sure what we're going to do next. And we think, hey, I want to be stimulated by something. And I have an app, well, I'll talk about it in a second, which helps with this. But essentially, there's a question of what kind of content do you consume in this situation? And if it's Facebook, that's usually a mess because it's so distracting. Whereas if it's something more nourishing, then it's good. So I thought, you know what, like if I'm waking up in the morning or something and I feel bad or whatever, like I'm just going to watch one of these 10-minute instructional things. And so that became my default. And I happen to have an app called Thoughtful that I helped create that unfortunately isn't widely available yet because it's still in testing mode. But that's an app where it helps you focus on the content you really want to consume versus the junk that you end up consuming. And so I put my jiu-jitsu videos in Thoughtful. If you guys are interested in Thoughtful, by the way, you can go to thoughtful.community/HFP and you can get on the beta list, although it'll take a while to actually get to use it, but just, I didn't mean for this to be an advertisement for Thoughtful. So the 2 conditions were put the solo drills in my calendar and put the jiu-jitsu videos in Thoughtful. So that's just how I go from, and the idea is if I execute on this, my jiu-jitsu life will actually be better. And this week I was mediocre at executing on the solo drills, I have to say. I was amazing at executing on the watching videos. And I really had more fun in jiu-jitsu this week than I've had in a long time. Because I had identified something new. So any questions about just the methodology overall, because what we're going to do is we're going to go into the breakout rooms and spend 5 minutes. First, I'll tell you what we're going to do, but let's say, are there any questions just about how the method works or about how it might apply to something? Because I'm going to have you spend a little bit of time on your own, thinking about your own, and then you're going to go into breakout groups and then we'll report back. So any questions about how the method works? Okay, good. We have Mr. McGee and then Matt McLaughlin. So Mr. McGee, go first.
Yeah, I'm trying to change that right now in my Zoom settings.
That's okay.
No, just when you say the method, maybe I missed it, but
so when I say the tool, so just the 4 steps of acknowledge the disruption, be creative, outline. Are you able to see the handout?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just what I mean. And Matt,
Okay.
Any suggestions on if you have multiple things, picking one? Is there?
well,
there
we're
any
going to do several in this session. And then I'm going to suggest doing it. I mean, I did it last Sunday for I at least did the 1 and 2 for every area, for all 12 areas. But I would say, I mean, concretely for this, anything that you think you can come up with ideas for fairly quickly. And if you want to share it with me, then if you think I could give any particularly useful feedback, then that can be a factor as well. But it's mainly you get a sense of it, because even if you get a sense of it in a small realm, it's very empowering to get that feel of, oh, kind of the world / biology made, like, is trying to make my life suck, and yet I try. That's a little bit malevolent about it, but it's like, that's a real power if I can improve this. Okay, so let's take about 3 minutes just we're not going to break out yet, 3 minutes. So pick an area, sort of very quickly map out the 4 steps, and maybe you've been thinking of them already. So pick one of the 12 areas and then go through this. And then we're going to break you out into rooms of 3, and you'll discuss them for, Kelso, we're going to discuss them for 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back. All right. So let's, Kelso, keep time and we'll get started. I'm going to work on a new one of my own.
Alex, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but
Go for it.
I'm looking at what I think is the handout, and there's 2 pages.
Yeah,
and
so
on
it's the
the
second page.
Second page, okay. So and the objective of what you're asking us to do is to look at the 4 areas of the triumph over disruption.
Sorry, yeah, let me be clear. So it's the four big questions. So those are the 4 steps of it. And then the areas of life are just create, the 12 things I had above. So just pick one. So if it's, let's just say I want to work on my own personal environment, then I'm going to say I'm going to spend a few minutes thinking about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. All right. It looks like we're bringing back people. I guess everyone is back. So who wants to share something from your group? Just raise your hand.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of fun talking with Chase and Chris about connecting with family members and taking up a new hobby, photography, and me getting back into my project. And it just, it was really nice to meet people. I mean, just the connection was wonderful, or re-meet them.
Yeah, that's part of, I was saying before we got started, that's part of my own scheme, is this is part of my companion realm and like friends realm, is just to connect with the people who follow my work.
Yeah.
A different kind of way, versus it's usually, if I'm speaking to an audience, but usually the people who are the biggest fans of my work who listen regularly, I only see them at a conference or something, but not live doing it. All right, great. So who else has something to share? And what I want to focus on, and what I focused on in my own group, is just what are the specific conditions that need to be in place. And with basically every person who talked, my big question was, okay, what are the ideas were really good. And so my question is, what are you going to do? And and when, and then is it going to go on your calendar? So I'm going to see if you guys can see this, just to give you a sense of, can anyone see this? You can at least see.
It's teeny.
Yeah, it's teeny. Okay. But it's all, what you just need to know is this is my calendar for Saturday. So, sorry, was not, well, I'll just show it for one more frame and then I'll explain. It doesn't really matter what's on here for your purposes. So this is just an example of setting the conditions. So with one of the general things is that, we're much more disrupted than usual. I think in general, free time is poorly planned and should be better planned. But right now it's so hard because we have fewer options. So one thing is, just with anything recreational, rejuvenation, is I want to have it planned in advance. So my Saturday is, I made sure that before the weekend, I have a plan. Now I can change it, but it's just, okay, like meditate. I mean, the specifics don't really matter, but I have okay, I have a new thing where a thing I created as a recreational thing where I ride my one wheel in this new place. And then I'm listening to all the Beethoven symphonies over time, because I like listening while riding. And I'm impressed by him, but I haven't listened to his stuff very much. And then I have surfing. And then in the afternoon, it's with my girlfriend. So we're going to the park, and she hasn't approved all of this, but this is all like tentative and like relax and read. And then we're playing code names with my family, and then hopefully watching my new favorite show, which is Mr. Sunshine, which I highly recommend if you have not seen it. It's on Netflix, and it's amazing. But the thing I want to highlight is the most important thing is that I set the conditions, because that's going to maximize the chances of happening. So yeah, we had Stephanie Bond wanted to share something. So Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to say our group we had a similar problem, that we're just dealing with this disruption, finding that what we were using before wasn't working, and just trying to figure out ways to go forward, right? And now for me, it's not the calendar per se, because my calendar, I put a few things in it here and there. I need something that's going to motivate me to work on all my million projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like a to-do list with a finite period of time.
Okay.
And right, so from now to the end of April, I'm going to make a list of all the items I want to work on. With each day, I'm going to at least put one tick mark against one project on every single day, and sometimes maybe two, because it's in addition to paid work that I do for clients, which I can't predict when it'll arrive. It's just my own projects that have lapsed completely. And before I even do that, I'm going to do thinking on paper to purge all the negative thoughts that come up first thing in the morning for some reason, about how depressing it is and we can't go shopping and blah, blah, right? All this, whatever it is, whatever the latest thing is, just get it out of my head, and then find if that works to get on and be more positive so I can work on the projects. Because I need positive frame of mind to be able to work on a writing project, or even a big editing project, or come up with a blurb to contact law firms for my new webinar. It's like, I've got the webinar, but I've got no customers. So it's just having the mechanism that works for me. And that's what I've come up with.
Yeah.
And that's how I put it together.
That's good. Yeah. So it's really interesting. One funny thing I find about workshops, because I attend a couple of them, and I attend one really high level one, which is strategic coach. And so often it's like the things that we most need to do are very simple, which is not to say easy, but it's often just, it can be valuable if you spend an hour and then it amounts to, oh, I just have to put 3 things on my calendar, or I have to do this to-do list. And it's just, there's so much leverage in actually putting yourself in action. So thanks for sharing there. Who else wants to share something that came up in your group? Dan Sullivan.
The other Dan Sullivan.
The other Dan Sullivan.
Well, one of the things that, well, first of all, it just occurred to me based on what Stephanie was saying, I often will make to-do lists that even if there are tiny little things on it, it's a very good psychological lift every time you can tick something off and know that you have accomplished something. So I think that's a very good idea that Stephanie mentioned. One of the things that came up in our breakout session was trying to do things that you've been meaning to get to but haven't. And in my case, it's just little projects like buying soft closer, stop the cat door, bang, and it closed, which is not a big thing in the overall scheme of life, but it was very satisfying to get it done. And now every time I close a door, instead of sort of waiting for the bang, I just can smile when it closes nice and gently, and I can barely hear it. And in our breakout, Matthew was saying that he's been working on some things for his music school that he's been wanting to get to for a long time, and it sounds like he has some plans that will continue to benefit him personally as well as business-wise as time goes on. So I think getting to things that you've been wanting to get to for a long time, and just taking advantage of this time to just tackle some of those little things, it's very satisfying. And one other thing I'll add, seeing that Ellen's on, last week, my wife and I listened to, was it the week before, you had a session with Ed Locke talking about getting together with family via Zoom or FaceTime. And my wife and I have been able to very much enjoy get-togethers almost on a daily basis with our grandson, which helps out our kids. Our son and his wife are working from home, and with an energetic 3.5-year-old son
Oh, that's
running
awesome.
you know, for the last couple of years, they're in Seattle and we're in Colorado Springs, and you know, we've been wishing we had more of a chance to get together with them on FaceTime instead of once every week or two. And now almost daily, we have a couple hours where we read them books and just talk about different stuff. And so that's a very satisfying thing that's kind of just fallen into our lap, but good for us and good for the kiddo, and definitely helping out our son and his wife.
Great. I want to do one more breakout room exercise. And so this is a new version of it. So, but any questions about this process and in particular, how to set conditions or any other aspect? Because then I'm just going to give you a new variation of it that I think will help as well. Good. Well, yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
Go ahead, Chris.
You've talked about setting conditions.
Yes.
And what I seem to be hearing and what we discussed was more of getting yourself organized and doing things, like setting an objective maybe, and saying, okay, I'm going to do these things and get them done. So I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah, let
by
me explain.
conditions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm occasionally lapsing into like shorthanding things that I've said on previous podcasts, which is a bad habit. So thank you for asking me about it. So conditions in the broadest sense is just anything that is in your physical or mental environment that increases the odds that your goals will get achieved. So the examples I've been using are just having something in your calendar. So that just means I have a calendar. When I look at my calendar, if it's in there, it's going to get achieved. But it can often be like in our group, we had put your workout shoes next to the door, the soccer ball next to the door. Someone had like bring my equipment out. And I'm very big on just thinking of all kinds of ways to optimize the conditions in one's life. So I just like it as condition because it has an element of inevitability to it. So a great question. So here's the exercise. We're going to do this one more quickly, and if anyone has to leave, of course, you can leave at 4. We'll formally end at about 4:08 because I have a meeting at 4:10 I need to go to. But the next exercise I want to do is related, and it's more focused on the earlier stages. And so I came up with this last week, which is I took the 12 areas of life, and you'll just do this for one for now, but I focused on first brainstorming as many ideas as I could about how I could make my life better. And the idea was to come up with enough where if I actually did all of these, my life would be better in that respect. So I'll just give you an example I had from companions in the friends domain. So I had 5 of them. So one is I have a local activity partner. So haven't really had a local activity partner for a lot of the activities I like. And I have a specific friend whom I've been surfing with. And so we've started one wheeling. And so it's like, okay, I've started on this. I have a local activity partner, and in that respect, I'm better off than I was before. And then I'm closer to far away friends. That's definitely something I can do more of now. And I've started to. I'm more connected to the CIP and HFP communities. I've already started that. And that's big, big change from before. I'm closer to the strategic coach community, another community I'm part of. And then I'm closer to Brian, who's my person I work on the app Thoughtful with. Like we have a good relationship, but we could interact even more. So I just think if those 5 things are true, then my friendship life will be better than it was before. It won't be the same plus, but it'll be overall better. And so this is the exercise, is to think about, brainstorm as many things as you can. You don't have to commit to them. You don't have to create conditions yet, but I just want you to have that power. So we're going to go into the groups for a total of 6 minutes. So 2 minutes each. And you're just going to each share for 2 minutes, as much as you can, brainstorm. And I just want you to get started on it so that you can do it later more. And then once you've brainstormed, then for the ones that are the highest value, then you can do the full exercise. Any questions about that? Okay, let's, Kelso, send them in. So 6 minutes sharp, and we will be back. Okay, guys, we're back to the main session. We got about 7 minutes left. So I realized that exercise I'll have to work on for next time. I wish I'd given you more time to brainstorm in advance, because it can be hard to brainstorm on the spot, especially with other people watching. But did anyone come up with a brainstorm? And by that, I mean an area of life where you have a few ideas where if you could do all of them, that would be pretty good.
Well,
Dixon,
yeah.
tell yours.
Well, our group came up with, well, 3 out of the 4 of us said, yeah, we need to do more social stuff and enjoy our friends more, like Zoom with your friends, not just with your boss, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And I think that's something I'm personally going to try pretty soon, like today.
Good. So what's your next action?
My next action is I'm going to reach out to friends that, you know, my immediate closest group of friends. We check up. Hey, how are you? You okay? Yeah, me too. Okay, good. Bye. But maybe a little bit more in depth, like grab a glass of wine and sit in front of the Zoom and actually have a conversation.
Yeah, that's great. And it's amazing what can be done, I think, in terms of improving relationships right now, because it's so difficult. I have one friend, I won't mention who, but I'll just send this person an encouraging text once every couple days, just kind of like, oh, you're doing great. And it's amazing how much of a difference that makes to the person. It's like, it's just a huge thing. And it just occurred to me, oh, well, that would be, I'm not asking for anyone to send that to me. I don't think it would help me too much at the moment, but it was just, I just thought that for this person, I know they would really value this. And I believe it. And I just think, oh, this person's in a transition period and I can really encourage them. And it's just, there's all kinds of things, because it's so difficult. Like the actions we take can be more meaningful. And this is true in business situations, like reaching out to people and being helpful to them. And certainly in personal types of situations. And who else had some brainstorming in your group, or any other kinds of insights you want to share?
Well, my personal thing was mental health, but then we started discussing a little bit about just how change of environment is so important, and that kind of ties into a lot of things, in terms of focus. And for me, that's a huge issue, because I am always able to work from home if I want to, especially now. So one thing that I've started to do is to force myself to just like come into the office, even though I don't need to, because else I'm going to be at home completely distracted. And it's going to take a toll on my mental health. So among many other things that one could list in those areas, it seemed like there was some sort of consensus that, just a change of environment can be quite helpful.
Yeah, that's one that's hard to improve, because the whole essence of the legal thing is saying you have to be in one environment, and it's indoors, which I think is crippling. But so that's one where you might have to be mitigation. But yeah, anything you can do to move around, to go outside. I've been really deliberate on my schedules for the weekends, just hours and hours and hours outside, and just wherever I'm allowed to go, like walking down Pacific Coast Highway, one wheeling to the one park that's open. It's just because that's so crucial to health. And I know that it's so bad for me to be inside all the time.
I know that feeling.
Other ideas or questions? We just have a few more minutes. So if there's any questions I can answer to help you with any of this material, now would be a great time to ask.
I think in our group, Chase had a really good point. He gave me a really good example of what you meant by conditions.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to put words in Chase's mouth, but it resonated with me. He's doing photography, and he says it takes a whole bunch of time to set up my photography stuff, so I leave it set up so that it's easier for me to get to. And I know that just got me thinking. Go out for a walk, right? If you have to go find your coat and your walking shoes and everything else, whereas if you leave them all there, then you're more likely to get onto it. So I appreciated your thought on that, Chase.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Got it. Mr. McGee, did you have something?
I would just be curious to know, we're thinking about a thinking methodology, and I would just be curious to know if people have specific technological tools or apps or resources that they use that help them be more productive or whatever.
Google Calendar is my.
Yeah, I've just gotten him into that. Google, like, the calendar is kind of the simplest one. I think I did an episode where I talked about, I think it was my 2018 planning one or 2019 planning one, where I talk about I organize my planning around, I use something called Checkvist, Checkvist. It's an embedded list program. So it makes it very easy to set like priorities within priorities and collapse and expand them. So I have mine divided up into the 12 areas. And so one thing is it just makes it very easy to set a goal every week in that area and then connect specific tasks to them.
Checkvist.
Checkvist.
Okay.
Stephanie, it looks like
I
you
have
had
something
something
to add on the calendaring, because I use the calendar for billing, for my bills that I have to pay, and use the alerts. Use both alerts. Like set one up for like the day before and then a half an hour before, so that you get 2 alerts. Like, because if it's weeks away that you're going to pay a bill, or like for some of these activities, you could set it up for the night before and 5 minutes before, so that you get an alert on your device. 5 minutes now, you're supposed to be doing making your list, or you're supposed to be doing your rejuvenation, or whatever the item is. But set the alerts up so they're far enough apart that it reminds you, so that if there's any preparation you have to do or get into the mood or whatever, it gives you the trigger. And it's like you can do anything from 5 minutes to days away, right, for the alert.
Yeah, no, those things
helpful.
are valuable. Yeah, and people use different things. I actually don't. I'm super trained with my calendar, so I don't use alerts, although I have an assistant to remind me of stuff occasionally. But I just have it as like I'm always looking at this thing. Like this is the thing. I have apps. I have machines where it's basically just a calendar and Checkvist. And that's
but I don't look at my calendar that much, so I use it for that purpose.
I think it's a great kind of use case. All right, any final questions?
Are you doing this again next week?
Okay, that's a good question. So, well, I'm interested in doing this more. So, what would be great is if any feedback, including ideas or requests, I would really appreciate. So, alex@alexepstein.com, alex@alexepstein.com, and because I like. One thing I've just been thinking about a lot is I like connecting with people who are interested in this stuff, and so that's a value to me. And I also think that I'm really motivated to help people develop new capabilities during this situation. And I have a lot of empathy for what people are going through. So I'd like to be as useful as possible. So I'm certainly open to doing it one or more times. It'd be good to know what's helpful and what's not. And I'll have my own ideas for improving every time. But yeah, any kind of feedback that you have and any requests that you have and any suggestions that you have, all of those would be good. For example, last time somebody gave me the suggestion of the breakout rooms, which, while my execution was imperfect, it's still, I like that as a device. So yeah, let's wrap up there because I got a meeting at 4:10. Maybe I'll set a little bit more time for these things. But I just want to say to everyone, I really appreciate you coming. I've had a lot of fun doing these things, and it's very flattering that some of you have come twice. That's pretty cool to me, and it's good to meet a lot of you in person. So, yeah, give me your feedback. I'll definitely have more of them if people want them, and we will continue to put ourselves in a position where our lives are as good as they can be now, and then when we're liberated, we'll have a whole new set of powers.
Thanks very much, Alex.
Right,
Thanks,
everyone.
Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay. Hope you enjoyed the workshop. As I said to the participants, if you have any ideas or suggestions or you want to do more of this, email me at alex@alexepstein.com. Definitely up for doing it again, and maybe again several more times, but I want to make sure that it's valuable to people. Also, if you've listened but didn't participate, I'm curious if that's valuable to you as well. And I guess I should say, as always, if you have any questions, comments, love mail, or hate mail, you can email me at alex@alexepstein.com. Also, if you like the show and want to support it, number one thing you can do is tell somebody else about it. So share this specific episode or some other specific episode with somebody. You can also write a review on iTunes if it's a positive review. You can write negative reviews, but that's not as rewarding to me. And then also, if you want to financially contribute to the show, I set up a PayPal at paypal.me/human flourishing. that is it for this week. I'm planning on doing this every week, at least as long as we're dealing with this pandemic/lockdown. So I hope you're enjoying the content. I've been enjoying communicating with more of you. So I will be back next week. Until then, I'm Alex Epstein. This has been the Human Flourishing Project.